When you're working at a construction site and you get injured, who is responsible? We have represented dozens of clients that have been injured at job sites. I'm Eli Castronovo, and I represent workers who are injured at job sites, construction sites in Southern California. I have represented many clients who are injured at job sites. And there is a lot of expertise that goes into determining who is responsible for the client's injuries. Usually the injuries that we represent on these kinds of cases deal with fractures, shoulder injuries, knee injuries, back injuries, herniated discs, and also brain injuries, because you're dealing with heavy machinery. You're dealing with often workers who are working 2, 3, 4 floors off the ground in a very chaotic kind of situation. So very often, unfortunately, the worker's sole remedy is workers' compensation. The workers' compensation system is good, and this is a system in which you cannot sue your employer in court. You have to make a workers' compensation claim, and then the workers' compensation system takes care of that. Now, it's a good system in a lot of aspects. It will pay the bills of the injured person. It'll give them a certain level of benefits that cover their loss of earnings during the time that they're disabled. And if it's a bad enough injury, it'll give them a permanent disability payments too. These are not really gigantic payments that people get in workers' compensation. And more importantly, it does not compensate a person for their what we call non-economic or human injuries. It doesn't compensate them for their pain and suffering, the loss of enjoyment of things that they can't do anymore, the anxiety they go through, the stress that they go through. It doesn't compensate them for all of these things, including very often they receive these terrible scarring situations from burns or from large objects that fall on them. So it is a good system, but it's not as good as it should be. So what we do is when a client comes to us and says, I have been injured on a work site, on a construction site, we have to find, is there another pocket we can reach? Do we only have a workers' compensation case, which my office does not handle? There are many fine attorneys that do that, but we don't do that. Is there a case against some other entity? So in California, there is a case called Privet that the California Supreme Court determined a few years ago, and basically it says that you can't sue if you work for an independent contractor on a job site in many instances. So we have to try to find the instances in which you can sue. If you can't sue, you're stuck with workers' compensation. But if you can sue, again, you can get all these pain and suffering, loss of enjoyment, damages, human damages. So there's exceptions to the Privet case. One of the exceptions is that if the independent contractor doesn't have a lot of control on the job site. Very often there's subcontractors that don't have control. They're there to do certain kinds of smaller jobs, and they don't take over the large jobs, such as a major contractor such as Tudor Saliba, who is building part of the subway system or works on the freeways, things like that. If you have a smaller contractor, they don't have much control of the job site. They're told to do certain things, electrical, plumbing, something of that nature, maybe install stairs, but they don't have a lot of control. So if the premises owner or the larger construction company maintains most of the control, and the way that they conduct business causes to be the construction site to be more dangerous, and they're negligent either passively or actively, then you can go against the major construction company. So in that case, you can get around Privet, and you can make a case for pain and suffering, file it in civil court and get a judgment or settlement there, which will be much larger than a workers' compensation case. Another situation is where the construction company that is running the job site has caused a problem or a condition there that makes it very dangerous, and the subcontractor or the employees of the subcontractor either aren't told about this or don't know about this, or the large company hasn't done anything to remedy the situation. In that case, again, you can usually go against the large construction company. Now, again, this makes a difference because you get pain and suffering damages, loss of enjoyment of life damages, but also very often these large construction companies that run job sites, they've got very, very large coverage of insurance, $1 million, $5 million, $20 million. So if you have a bad enough injury, then you can reach that insurance and either settle the case or get a substantial judgment to try to make your client whole. I want to tell you a couple cases that I recently had involving job sites. I have a case where some work was being done out at a water treatment plant. And my client represented a company that, or worked for a company that's only job was to go over there and pull cables for computers. So the control of the site itself was almost 100% in control of the folks that the water treatment plant, which my client did not work for. He was out there pulling cables, and as he was pulling one of these large cables and backing up, he slipped on oil where they'd been cutting pipes in the area too. And he went down, ended up tearing up his knee, and had to have 2 surgeries on his knee. He wasn't able to work for almost a year and lost a lot of income. And also, he was not able to engage in activities with his family, his children, all of the things that we enjoy in life. And he had a lot of pain going through surgery and rehabbing the knee. So it was determined through our investigation, and we filed suit, and we got a accident reconstructionist on the site who checked everything out, and it was determined that they had unsafe practices, the company that was running the construction site, because they should not have been cutting pipes in an area where my client's company was pulling cables, because when they cut those pipes, they have to grease the pipes when they cut them, and the byproduct was having a slippery floor. So we were able to get a very large settlement for the client, and he was happy. But it took a long time, and it took a lot of litigation to do that. We had another case recently in which a client was working at an amusement park, one of the large amusement parks, and they were building a new attraction. And his company's only involvement was putting these stairs in at the attraction. And these are pre-formed stairs that they're brought to the site. They're manufactured by his company, and they're brought to the site, and then they're welded into place. So it's really remarkable the way they do things. But he was climbing up one of these stairs when he tripped inside one of the stair pans. So what happens with these stairs is they're um, uh, fastened into place, and then cement is poured over them. In the meantime, pieces of wood have to be put into these pans for each tier of the stairway. So the workers can use the stairway and walk up the stairway to the second floor, third floor, whatever, safely. Well, unbeknownst to my client, someone had removed some of these wood planks, and when he was nearly all the way up, he took a step, and there was nothing there. He lost his balance, tumbled, fell back, ended up fracturing his leg and hurting his shoulder. So we were able to discover what other contractor was involved in that particular area doing work, and we were able to establish more likely than not that one of their workers, for some reason, took a piece of wood out. I don't know if he was using it for his own purposes or for his company's purposes, but it ended up causing my client to be injured. So we were able to obtain a substantial settlement in that case. So we don't, in these construction site accidents, we don't tell a client not to make a workers' compensation claim. In fact, while the civil case is going on, it's helpful to have workers' compensation paying benefits for them, so at least they can support themselves while they're injured. The workers' compensation insurance company ends up getting a credit at the end when we settle our case, but at least the client can survive while the civil case is going on, because very often, especially in these construction site accidents, it takes a while to resolve these cases, because you have to do a lot of discovery, a lot of litigating in order to get a substantial settlement. So as long as the client can remain on their feet, so to speak, financially while we're doing that, that's the best of both worlds. So in a construction site accident, there's a lot of expertise involved. We've been doing it for years. We've obtained dozens of settlements, either before litigation or in litigation. We know how to litigate these cases, and we know how to get the best recoveries. We also know the best doctors that can treat clients that are injured in construction site accidents. These doctors will not require any sort of payment until the case is completely resolved, and they will give the best care possible to the client. So if you're involved in a construction site accident, come to us. We know what we're doing. We will get a substantial settlement for you.
Hi there. I am an AI avatar reading a real Google review by Luis Enrique Lopez. It went very well with the lawyer. I highly recommend him 100%. All the staff are very friendly and they help you with any questions. Thanks for your review, Luis Enrique Lopez. It's appreciated.
I love the effort and dedication he provides to his clients. I highly recommend anyone that is in any type of personal injury crisis to come here. You will not be disappointed.
I can't say enough good things about Eli. Having worked for numerous attorneys, he is my favorite. He has handled numerous cases for my family, and I from personal injury to medical malpractice. He has over-exceeded our expectations every time.